the current subject, the current event of today's Muslim world, and that is nothing other than Palestine issue. So I'm sure that you are all aware of the issue of Palestine, especially the recent event and the recent crimes of the Zionist regime against Palestinians. So that is why today, on the anniversary of the demise of Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh, we have chosen this title and this subject to speak about. And we are honored to have our great speakers here from different countries, from Indonesia, from Philippines, from Sri Lanka, and from Malaysia. We were supposed to have a very prominent guest from Thailand also, but unfortunately, uh, because of his very busy schedule, the speaker that we wanted him to be with us today, because of his busy schedule, we could not have it today. We have also Dr. Limba from Philippines. So he was supposed to be with us today also, but something happened. He could not be here, but he has sent us his speech, and inshallah, on the time of his speech, we will broadcast it here. Let me just start with a chapter of the Holy Quran, and then I will leave the session in the hands of Dr. Rahmat from Indonesia. I asked him, indeed, I requested him to be the moderator as well as one of the panelists, and he humbly accepted to be the moderator of the session also. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Well, Dr. Rahmat, I leave the ground with you. Please go ahead. Shukran.
Alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening to all the audience of our webinar this evening entitled Imam Khomeini and Palestine. And Alhamdulillah, we have with us honorable speakers, honorable lecturers, His Excellency Dr. Nguyen Quang Khai, former Vietnamese ambassador to so many countries in the Middle East and has so many experiences. He is also president of Vietnam and Palestine Friendship Association. He speaks Arabic fluently, and inshallah we will learn a lot from his experience. And also we have with us, Alhamdulillah, Maulana Sheikh Lafir Madani from Sri Lanka, president of the Hashimi Foundation. It is indeed an honor and a blessing, Maulana, to have you in our webinar. And with us also will join Brother Dr. Mansur Limba from the Philippines. He has also recorded his remarks for our webinar. Unfortunately, he could not join us in presence for our meeting today. And inshallah,
Dr. Azmi also, Maulana Azmi joined us.
Alhamdulillah. And also with us, Samaha Al-Ustad Al-Alama Al-Sheikh Muhammad Azmi Abdul Hamid. He is very active and well known for his support and activities for our Palestinian brothers. He is currently a president of the Consultative Council and Islamic Organization of Malaysia. Maulana Samahatul Ustad, welcome. It is an honor to have you for this webinar. Can you hear us already? Maulana Sheikh Ustad Muhammad Azmi? Inshallah, the connection is in progress. And I, myself, with your permission, allow me to introduce myself. And as a moderator, also one of the panelists for this webinar today. My name is Miftah Fauzi Rahmat. I am the chairman of Mutahari Foundation and also head of the Indonesian Ahlul Bait Followers Association. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for all this honor, for this blessing of this webinar. And as Dr. Karimi mentioned, these past 2 days also coincides with the anniversary of the demise of the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the late Imam Khomeini. In his honor, inshallah, we will have this short video remembering the late Imam Khomeini. Dr. Karimi, would you please the video? Thank you.
Is it okay? You have it?
Yes, we can see it. Just can't. Yes. The screen, Dr. Karimi, we cannot see the video yet.
What? You cannot see the video?
No.
Yeah.
Is it okay or not?
We can see the files, but not the video.
Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just try again. Please, you go ahead. Let me just try.
Okay. Inshallah, we will show the video afterward. Once again, this webinar currently is broadcasted through some Facebook channels and also YouTube channels. So
Can I just try it again?
Yes, please.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. Now it's good.
I'm sorry for that.
So YouTube channel. So. Thank you very much, Mr. Karimi. Allah yarhamhu rahmatal abrar. May God bless late Imam Khomeini and also our ulamas, those who have taught us the teachings of the Prophet, the teachings of Islam, the universal values of Islam. For the first speaker, inshallah, we are honored. I will give the opportunity to Your Excellency, Dr. Nguyen Quang Khai, and you could also add the introduction, as I mentioned only a few, about, of course, your activities and especially regarding the Palestinian issue. Dr. Khai, the audience is yours. The time, inshallah, from 15 to 20 minutes. Please.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam wa rahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
First of all, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to participate in the meeting Imam Khomeini and Palestine. Let me introduce myself. I graduated from Tashkent State University from the Orientalism faculty, belong to the state Tashkent University, former Soviet Union. And after that, after my graduation, I served as Arabic interpreter in our embassy in Baghdad. Yes, and when I was in Baghdad, okay, from 1975 to 1978. Imam Khomeini, I think that he was in Najaf. And recently, I served as ambassador to Iraq from 1995 to 2007. And during this time, I served in Yemen as ambassador and Jordan. And after that, after 2007, I transferred to Abu Dhabi and served there as ambassador to United Arab Emirates and Lebanon. Now I retired, and I am the president of Vietnam Palestine Friendship Association. For your information, when the Islamic Republic of Iran established, and Iran people achieved the victory, okay, to overthrow the Shah regime in 1979. Vietnam was among the first country in the world recognize the Islamic Republic of Iran and open our embassy in Tehran directly. And our relations with the Islamic Republic of Iran developed very fast. We exchanged the high-level visits. Our president several times visited Tehran, and also the presidents of Iran visited Vietnam several times, from Ahmadinejad, and recently, 2 years ago, we had the honor to receive the president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani. And now our relations are very good in on fields, cooperation in on fields. Okay, now we are talking about the Palestine struggle. And the Palestine-Israeli conflict is the most complex, protracted conflict in the modern history. The main cause of this conflict is the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian line in West Bank and East Jerusalem, and its rejection to establish independent state of Palestine. This is the main cause of the escalating tension between Israel and Palestine, the source of the violence causing death and suffering for both Jewish and Palestinian people, threatening peace and security in Middle East region. This situation called for an urgent solution to the conflict. Position of Vietnam in the conflict on the conflict is very clear. We strongly support struggle of Palestinian people for the legitimate national rights, including the right of self-determination, right of return, and the right of establish their own independent state. In 1987, Vietnam is one of the first countries in the world recognized the state of Palestine and upgraded the representative office of Palestine Liberation Organization, PNO, to the rank of the embassy in Hanoi. And we gave them the building to use as the embassy in Vietnam. We also support the Palestine cause in all the international arenas as the United Nations and other international organizations. And I think that the comprehensive, just, and sustainable solution can only be achieved on the basis of ending the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian land and establishing an independent state within the 1967 border with its capital east of Jerusalem. Specific issues need to be achieved during direct negotiation between Palestine and Israel. The legal framework for dealing with these issues is the Security Council resolution, mainly the resolution number 242, 338, the Land for Peace principle introduced in the Middle East Peace Conference in 1991, 1993, and recently in 2016. The Declaration of Principle, DOP, Oslo, as well as the Arab Peace Initiative adopted at the Arab League Summit in Beirut in 2002. And on this occasion, I highly appreciate position of the Islamic Republic of Iran and support the Palestinian struggle for to restore their national rights and struggle for to establish an independent state with the capital of Jerusalem. And thank you very much. And in the end, I would like to wish you a good health and happiness, and wish the conference with MENA and good success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen Quang Khai, former Vietnamese ambassador to so many Middle East countries, including Iraq, the UAE, Lebanon, Yemen, and Jordan. He has worked a lot on international level, international diplomacies, to solve the Palestinian issue. With us also, so thank you once again, Dr. Nguyen Khai. With us also, Samaha Al-Ustad Al-Alamah Muhammad Azmi bin Abdul Hamid from Malaysia. He is the president of the Consultative Council and Islamic Organizations of Malaysia. From what I read, Samahatul Ustad has done a lot, so many things for our Palestinian brothers. He has written books, has spent time also, a trip back and forth to Palestine, has deeply involved with the issue of our Palestinian brothers. Samahatul Ustad, inshallah, your time now to elaborate more and share your experience with us. Please enlighten us with your insights. فليتفضل مشكورا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Thank you, brother moderator, and thank you so much for inviting me, Mr. Karimi, on this special event in memory of the demise of Ayatollah Ruhollah Imam Khomeini, rahmatullahi, and thank you for participating me in this very important conversation. We are talking about Palestine and relating to the thoughts and so within the allocated about 15-20 minutes, let me just throw my ideas, and also I share my understanding of this whole issue of Palestine. Yes, indeed, it has become the heart of the whole struggle of the Ummah. I think if there's anything or any factor that can converge the Muslims all over the world, is because of the Palestinian struggle, especially for the freedom of Al-Aqsa. Now, this has been very much stressed by the Imam Khomeini about the support, the undivided support that we should relay to Palestinians, and we stand by, not because just about an occupation, but the Imam has been stressing about the resistance against tyranny, the resistance against oppressors, and that is why he included these terms of the mustakbirin, the oppressors, and the mustadafin, or the oppressed. Now, this concept has been very consistent in his addressed towards the Palestinian cause. And that is why I think the message that Imam Khomeini has always been repeating is about waking up people to understand who is the real enemy of the people on this earth. He has been coining the word the Shaitan Kabir, or the big Satan. I mean, it is a a summary of his perspective of understanding that humanity as a whole, not only Muslims, is facing this tyranny not just as a person, but also as a government and also as a system. He is able to upgrade this understanding of Palestinian struggle to be free. And as His Excellency was saying just now about self-determination, he's also, Imam also stressed about the need for the human to unite, irrespective of creed and religion, because tyranny crosses the borders of any religion. It wants to oppress, it wants to conquer, it wants to occupy. So the word is occupation. Therefore, I think he tried to define the Palestinian struggle in the form that it is not a conflict. It is an occupation. It is an aggression. Conflict means you feel that there's a dispute of rights, but this is not a dispute. This is a clear concept of why all of a sudden a group of people led by an organization which is called the World Zionist Organization colluded with the Western imperialists from France to Britain and then to the rest of the world, and making a decision to take down Palestine as their own and making it the so-called Jewish homeland. And they coined even, this wording of land without people and people for people without land. So the definition is very clear in why Imam Khomeini, came up with this understanding that we are fighting this against a tyrannical system. So Shah Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, the dynasty of Pahlavi, is only a tool. It is only a representative of a tyrannical or world order. He's just a puppet that's been used, and he was really absorbed into it, where everything that concurs with the Western powers, then he will be there, and he also allows himself to become the tool. So Imam Khomeini has always been reminding us that you have to understand the word muqawama, or resistance. That is something that has been ingrained in the Islamic guidance in the Quran and also the teachings of the Prophet, that you cannot be silent, you cannot just serve the oppressors. You have to stand up and to resist. And therefore, if I were to understand and put this into context, the Palestinian struggle, especially when it comes to expressing our objection and expressing our determination to fight against the oppressors, is because we are dealing with two important concepts in Islam that is always also been quoted by the Imam. That is justice, al-adlu, and also al-haq, the truth. So we are talking about peace and truth in fighting to liberate Palestine. And the word peace and truth is so powerful in the minds of the people that they rally behind Imam Khomeini, and to create this very unique revolution. And the message of that goes beyond the borders of Iran, and telling the world that there is an injustice going on. There is also, the fact that has been distorted, and this has to be exposed. And who are those people, in that game of, trying to, to suppress people because they are powerful. Just because they have the power, then the truth belongs to them. Just because they have the money, then justice belongs to them. And this is being redefined in the struggle of liberating Palestine. Now, let me just to understand the Palestinian cause. It goes back to even from the conspiracy of France and Britain and also the Zionist group, when they decided to see how to break the Muslim world from the Osmani Caliphate, they used one of the leaders of the Arabic client, where they sort of submitted to British that they can give away Palestinian land just on the condition that they will be given to rule Jazair. And so we started to know all this Ibn Saud, and right until now, since 1932, when Saudi Arabia was established under the name of Ibn Saud. So the consent given is again from a system that's been manipulated by the Western powers. And this is well understood by the Imam. He saw this. He saw that this is really the history behind why it is today now. And therefore, the counter action and the resistance is to expose this, the evil in very clear form. And that is why he said about this Mustaqbirin. You take on the various history of Palestine from the day of the Nakba, 1948, and then you have Naksa, that means the 6-Day War, where the Israeli Zionist army occupied Jerusalem in 1967. If you look at the way that Israel is being strengthened day by day, you will see that Israel again is just a representative of a world power. The world power which from British, then now it's been taken the role by the US. And then US now in the White House, the Capitol Hill is very much highly lobbied by the Israeli lobbyists, whether it's Republican or Democrat. They are using this position to make sure that the agenda of the Zionist movement is being very, it is supported by US all the way, and US is using the allies in the Europe and also in the Arabic countries, and then all that is translated into weaponizing Israel to the teeth. Whatever arms or arsenals, whatever resolutions have been passed, whatever decisions been made, even in the Security Council, all against Israel are all shielded by the US, even the superpowers and the other powers in Europe. Meaning that there is an understanding, as what the Imam is saying, that you have this big shaitan behind this, and you would see that they will not be allowed to even, Israel will not be allowed to even be impeached. So you have a scenario where we are seeing the Palestinian struggle is surrounded by a gang of nations, a gang of leaders who see that they have they allow themselves to be enslaved by the Zionists, the Israelis, and also the US and the rest. So that is why whenever you see the decisions or resolutions in motion in the United Nations as the biggest and the highest hierarchy of nations, in one organization. As I see, even 180 countries. I mean, there's more than 180 resolutions passed in the United Nations. Not one since 1949, when Israel was received as a full member in the United Nations way back in 1949. It was born in 1948. Just 1 year, all of a sudden it was recognized. Knowing very well that the birth of Israel is actually illegal in every sense of the word. It is against international law. It is against universal declaration of rights. It's against the Charter of the United Nations, and yet it got in as a full member. And therefore, you see any resolution, but then any resolution being passed, not one out of more than 180 resolutions have been complied with. For your information, there is even one resolution passed about Israel not complying with all resolutions. So, the frustration is that they can't touch Israel, whether it's economic or whatever, with more than hundreds embassies has all around the world. And therefore, we will see that the recent United Nations Human Rights Commission or Human Rights Council, when there was a vote to a suggestion and a proposal to have Israel to be investigated for war crimes, especially the recent aggression in Gaza, you have these numbers coming up, 24 in favor, 9 against, and also 14 abstentions. This is weird, and this is, in full sight. You see the murder, the massacre of children. Even Harris, the paper, the national paper of Israel, put up the 63 faces of the children. And for the first time also in the New York Times and the France Press, you have all these pictures of faces of these toddlers and the children. Even that, these countries abstain. They did not support this to investigate. So you would see that how they have been able to divide the nations around the world to favor what they're doing, or to at least keep quiet. You don't say anything, we'll do what we want. And this again, if we talk about when the Imam was saying about, that we have to converge when it comes to Palestinians. There's no sectarian definition of Muslims, whether you are Shia or you are Sunni. We are all one. And we should stand up together with all other nations, as the Excellency Vietnam is so supportive, even from the early days of revolution. They understood what this tyranny of the West is all about, and they stood up. And that is why we understand this whole definition of Palestinian struggle through the views and thoughts of the Imam is really. Really a change of mind, a change of way we look at things, a change of even terminologies that is being defined by international law or international organizations. He always gave us that message. We have to come back to our own definition, our own wordings. We cannot allow us to be not only physically colonized, but mentally, and we are being, occupied. And we use their terms, we use their definition, and that is the real revolution that Imam has always been talking about. So my ending of my presentation here is that we have to see that aside from looking Palestinian struggle in the debate of international law and international justice, we have to also come back to our own unity among peace-loving and so-called third world that we have always been together. Indonesia initiated this NAM, the non-aligned movement. Was a spectacular kind of idea for us to not go into sides, but then that non-alignment should also be translated that we should be always on the line of truth and justice. Non-aligned is not meaning that we are not also in favor of justice and
Yes. Thank
because whether any other. So I think my last sorry, there's a call coming in. My last word on this is that taking into account that we stand for Palestine all the way, we also be inspired by the thoughts of the Imam, who's introduced the meaning and the essence of resistance, muqawamat, and then we should then try to see how we can merge with all people of the world. It's not just about the Muslim bloc or the non-Muslim bloc. It's about the world that stands on peace and justice. And this is not easy to do because, the superpower is always trying to become the architect of world order and they want everybody to just submit. We need to see the spirit of resistance by Imam Khomeini, but then we have to also see the context of the modern way of resistance. Aside from, there is physical resistance by the freedom fighters of Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all the rest, but much more also important is the resistance of the political resistance, the economic resistance, and also the making sure that we can come back to the true reason of why United Nations has been established, because it's a big question. My last word, I just sent a letter yesterday morning to Antonio Guterres. He wants to go for second term, but I reminded him, that we are not dealing with something vague. As people always say, this Palestinian struggle is complex, is vague. The two sides of the stories. That is a wrong language to use. It is very clear. It is as clear as white and black. I mean, you kill children, you devastated the country, you robbed the whole rights of the people, you deny them, you put in this apartheid system. And then, this coming Naftali Bennett, who is even more vicious than Benjamin Netanyahu, for all we know, we're going to brace for very harsh administrations against the Palestinians. He's very proud of killing Arab Palestinians. He's got no problem with that. He's been announced that. So we have to now re-strategize our movement of resistance together with our friends around the world, be it Muslims or non-Muslims. So I think that will be my thoughts that I want to share. I hope it can be an enriching kind of thoughts. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. MashaAllah. Very eye-opening indeed. And thank you for pointing out so many of the late Imam Khomeini's perspective on Palestinian cause, pointing out that it is not a conflict, it is an occupation indeed. And also you have delivered a very firm, clear standing positions that we all should learn from you. May God protect you, inshallah. Allah yahfadukum. May God also assist us all to help our brothers. Thank you very much, Samad Ustad, once again. And we are moving now to
Dr. Ahmed.
Yes.
Dr. Ahmed,
Yes.
if we have one minute clip, Imam Khomeini and Palestine, if you let us.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Imam Khomeini and Palestine. Notably, Every single day
Not
which
yet shown,
passes out
Dr.
of the
Karimi.
bloody catastrophe of seizure of Palestine, the silence and compromise of the leaders
Dr.
of
Karimi,
Islamic countries,
we cannot
and
see the
the
picture.
reconciliation with the tyrant Israel is increasing. The Quds issue is not
Dr.
personal,
Karimi,
and it is not
Yeah,
a specific concern for a country
we haven't
or a particular matter for.
been able to see the picture yet.
You have it now? It's okay?
Yes, please.
Sorry for.
Imam Khomeini and Palestine, notably every single day which passes out of the bloody catastrophe of seizure of Palestine, the silence and compromise of the leaders of Islamic countries, and the reconciliation with the tyrant Israel is increasing. The Quds issue is not personal, and it is not the specific concern for a country or a particular matter for Muslims of the world in the present era, but an event for the monotheists of the world and the past, present, future believers. When you see the blood of your innocent brothers and sisters flowing in the holy lands of Palestine, there is no way but to continue the jihad. Israel must disappear from the world.
Okay, brother.
Endless support from the late Imam Khomeini on Palestinians cause. We are moving now to Maulana Sheikh Al-Alama Lafir Madani from Sri Lanka. As you are all aware, our webinar today, alhamdulillah, is conducted by the Cultural Counselor of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Malaysia and is broadcasted through Facebook and also YouTube. With us now, Maulana Lafir Madani from Sri Lanka. He is currently a president of Hashemi Foundation there. Maulana, 15 to 20 minutes, your time, if you please. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. قال الله تعالى في القرآن العزيز: ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. صدق الله العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me at the outset express my sincere thanks to the organizers of this webinar to commemorate the sad demise of Imam Khomeini rahimahullah, while that has pushed everyone to stay home. My special thanks go to Mr. Urai Karimi, the Cultural Counselor of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Kuala Lumpur. My greetings to the panelists and the participants and the moderator as well. As it was pointed out today, the entire world, especially the oppressed ones and Muslims, are celebrating another victory of the resistance movements over the usurper regime. It is not a secret that Imam Khomeini paved the path of this victory today and up until the last and grand Khomeini being a mujtahid of great caliber. His views on any issue, religious or otherwise, happen to be well studied, profound, and strong. Imam's views on Palestine were not superficial political slogans. Throughout his lifetime, Imam successfully presented the practical roadmap for the liberation of Palestine and all other oppressed nations. Imam was witnessing all the events that were unfolding from the beginning of the 20th century, going through the major events of the establishment of Soviet Russia, Balfour Treaty, collapse of Ottoman Empire, creation of nation states, emergence of Saudi Arabia as an alternative power base for Muslims, First and the Second World War, fall of British Empire, and then the creation of Zionist entity in the occupied land of Palestine. There were some other events as well witnessed, such as emergence of Islamic movements, creation of Pakistan, new Turkey, failed Arab wars against the Zionist entity, and continuous betrayal of Arab leaders. The support of world powers, as mentioned by Maulana, including the United States and the United Nations Organization, and especially the support of Pahlavi regime in Iran to Israel, were some events that could shake the consciousness of every just scholar like Imam Khomeini. This series of events and their impact could have had it vibrant and set the background to stand with courage, to make people aware of the core issues and the need of an ideology for the ultimate liberation of oppression, including Palestine. There were some notable characteristics in the movement of Zionism. The study of the nature of the Zionist movement will make it easy to understand Imam's holistic approach to tackle and defeat the Zionist movement. One is emergence of Jewish nationalism in the form of Zionism, and then the slogan of returning to the promised land. These were the prominent features of the Zionist movement. Jewish diaspora that was living in exile for over 2,000 years, with concentration in the Eastern and Western Europe, started awakening to find them cornered, isolated, discriminated in the wake of creation of nation states in Europe. According to Jewish historians, Zionism, the movement of Zionism, the concept of Zionism, emerged in Europe in the 19th century with the defined goal of terminating the abnormal political situation of the Jewish diaspora, that is, statelessness of the Jews, and creating a mode of collective life based on a national state. Arising from the emergency situation, caused by an increasingly rampant racist anti-Semitism in Europe, Jewish nationalism was developed into a movement with the negation of the diaspora concept, forming the core of its ideology and the starting point of its politics. While Jewish nationalism was gaining ground as the liberation theory of the scattered Jews, Arab nationalism was seen promoted in the Arabs as against Turkish Ottoman, who ruled the Arabian Peninsula. Although there were calls for pan-Arabism by conscious scholars such as Jamaluddin Afghani and his admirers, Arab nationalism spread well throughout the Arab world. New secular Turkey launched the program of de-Arabization of Turkey, fueling Turkish nationalism in the face of Arab nationalism. Even the movements of Arab socialism had the strong Arab nationalistic base. From Algeria to Yemen, Arab republics, Arab kingdoms, and emirates emerged to take Arabs to new heights. Even of the dangers of nationalism, he categorically denied all forms of nationalism, whether Arab, Turkish, or Persian. He invited Muslims to negate nationalist prejudice and come under the banner of Islam, united as one ummah in a united front. Imam called the Jews to deny Zionist nationalism, which is racism. Jewish population in Iran were given the assurance that Imam and the Islamic system would treat them as equal citizens, being the followers of Judaism. Imam clearly demarcated the boundaries of Judaism and Zionism. Let me quote some passages from the Sahih of Imam. Imam's speeches and writings are collected and archived. Quote, nationalism leads to division. The propaganda saying this is an Arab, that is a Turk, or Iranian, or Kurd is launched by the aliens to divide the Muslims and plunder the resources of these countries. The Muslim must be vigilant and should not be deceived by such propaganda. Unquote. And again, Imam says, by means of these corrupt governments and their propaganda, they have spread racism and nationalism among Muslims. They have made Arabs oppose non-Arabs and Turks, and have made the non-Arabs confront the Arabs, and the Turks confront the others. They have pitted all the ethnic groups against one another. The reason why I repeatedly emphasize that nationalism is the basic cause of misery is because it causes conflict between Iran and other Muslim nations. It pits Iran against all other nations and the other nations against one another. It is imperialist design to keep Muslims apart and even the oppressed apart. He says the previous Iraqi government, that was before Saddam Hussein, claimed that their goal was to revive the glory of some dynasty vis-a-vis Islam. The Islamic religion downplays all glory as being inferior to the God. This was not something that they themselves were smart enough to do. The world powers had inculcated it into them in order to keep the Muslim and the oppressed dispersed and disunited, and to make them enemies towards each other. The same trend also developed in Iran a long time ago. Thus, some individuals who were ignorant of the basic issues, even though they were supposedly not spiteful, stated the same concept of nationalism, Iranian nationalism or Persian nationalism, to uproot Islam in Iran. In short, Imam proposed to shed nationalism away and unite as one ummah, one body under the banner of Islam in order to fight and defeat Zionism and all other forms of oppression. Ultimate objective of the maintenance of united Islamic Ummah under the banner of monotheism. Islam has come to unite all the nations, Arab and Ajam, Turk and Fars, and establish one big community called Islamic Ummah in the world, so that those who want to dominate the Islamic countries and the Islamic centers will not be able to do so because of the vast multitudes of the various classes of Muslims. All the Muslims are brothers. All of them are equal. All of them should remain under the banner of Islam and the banner of monotheism. This is what Imam used to repeatedly emphasize. Imam transformed the dimension of Palestinian issue into an Islamic one. The world arrogance and Zionism were promoting it as Arab-only issue, or just as a Palestinian national issue. At the later stages, we saw divisions were being created even within the Palestinian ranks. Imam emphasized that it is an Islamic issue and the solution lies in the recommendations of Islam and nowhere else. No other ideologies can help the oppressed to find their deliverance. He went further, calling it an issue of all monotheistic faiths. He said, the issue of Quds is not a private or personal issue. It is neither the exclusive problem of one country. It is a phenomenon concerning the monotheists and the faithful people of all ages, past, present, and future. The other emphasis Imam was making, that even though the slogan of the Zionists reads from Nile to Euphrates, the actual aim is to devour the entire region and the world. Letting this tumor unattended will cause destruction all over the world. A state which does not pay any heed to any UN resolution, the international pressure, and remain unpunished, supported by the superpowers, may pursue any undeclared goal of its own. Imam was of the view that Palestine belongs to all Palestinians, irrespective of their ethnicity and faith, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Arabs, all. And they, the Palestinians, should come together and decide their fate. Another vital point Imam tried to drive in was that the oppressed people and the Muslims in particular should stand on their own feet for their deliverance and freedom. They will never achieve their goals if they depend on world powers for their liberation. Imam criticized Zionism for depending on the imperialists, as it is contrary to the teachings of the Prophet Musa, Moses, peace be upon him. Prophet Musa fought against Firaun, the superpower of that time, era, to achieve the liberation of the Mustazafin children of Israel. The Zionist regime totally depends on the imperialism for their survival and existence. Finally, we see today that Imam's pathway for Palestine liberation is well taken up by the freedom seekers. The overwhelming presence of freedom-loving people to mark the International Quds Day this year proved it to the world that the message of Imam has been well received by the new generation, even after passing 32 years of his demise, of this great personality in the modern history. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon the soul of Ruhollah Musawi Khomeini and those who fought to make the world free from the clutches of neo-colonialists. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Maulana. Thank you indeed. I was supposed to be one of the panelists, but I find myself a student of these three great lecturers before me. I really enjoyed and learned a lot from all of them. Maulana Lafir Madani, with his excellent mastery of the history and the condition of the region. Thank you very much once again. And as supposed to be one of the panelists, I couldn't agree more with what all has been said by His Excellency, by Samaha Alama Ustad Muhammad Azmi, also by Maulana Lafir Madani. I would like to only add a few before I return the webinar to the one responsible gathering us together in this event, Mr. Karimi. I would only like to point out a few little things. As Maulana Lafir Madani has mentioned, one of Imam Khomeini's legacy was the International Al-Quds Day on every last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan. That is Imam's legacy, the International Al-Quds Day, Yaumul Quds Al-Alami. And to me, personally, looking back at when all of this was started, it was started after the victory of the Islamic Revolution. Only in short time, within the range of 8 months after the victory of the Islamic Revolution, Imam Khomeini, rahimahullah, ta'ala alayh, already pointed out the Palestinian issue. Imam set free the Iranian nation, but also this freedom is not only theirs to enjoy, it's not only theirs to achieve, but to all the free people of the world. And if we cannot take out the occupation from the Palestinians, then everything else will stay the same. Like if we do not do anything, then they, as pointed out by Samah al-Alamah al-Ustad Muhammad Azmi, what Imam Khomeini called as the big Satan, the great Satan, could do many things, could take anything. They will see that the Muslims, Ummah, or even the human being, all great nations did not do anything about Palestinians. So they could do much more. They could do many things else as long as they wish. So 8 months after the victory of Islamic Revolution, Imam Khomeini stated that the last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan is the International Day, Al-Quds Day. As Imam said, the International Al-Quds Day is a day in which Islam is to be revived. I would like to, as also pointed out by our great speakers today, the Palestinian issue is the issue of justice, not only Islamic justice, but human justice. So I could say that the voice of Imam Khomeini is as-sawt al-adalah al-insaniyah, the voice of human justice. And we are today, 32 years after his demise, still see the great influence Imam has put upon all of us, upon the Muslim Ummah. I also could not agree more with what Samatul Ustad Alama Muhammad Azmi has said, that the point of Palestinian cause, the point of Al-Quds Day is the Islamic unity. Islamic unity. That's the key. Also pointed out by Maulana Lafir Madani the betrayal of some leaders. This is the problem. We cannot be united. We still have, yes, we do have our differences, but the Palestinian issue should resolve all our differences. Imam Khomeini, rahimahullah, also pointed out that if we do not do anything, this Israeli occupation is a cancer that will affect all of us. Not only the Islamic Ummah, but every nation in the world. So I was in awe. I was so much amazed by the speeches of our great speakers before me. They have their strong and firm position regarding the issue. And so I would like to thank Mr. Karimi for putting up this excellent webinar. And I hope that this webinar could be broadcasted as wide as it can. And I will do my best also with our brothers here in Indonesia to, with your permissions, Your Excellencies, to translate some of your remarks into our language, into Indonesian language, with your permissions once again, because it is really an eye-opening for me, for all of us. People should know what really happened. People should know that this is not it's in a conflict, it is an occupation. This should be the start of the Islamic unity. We should be together. And Imam Khomeini said regarding Al-Quds Days, once again, to me, one of Imam Khomeini's legacy is Al-Quds Day, because Imam started out Al-Quds Day, International Al-Quds Day, only 8 months after the Islamic Revolution. We could see, we could learn how the situation of one country after a very after such an upheaval. So after 8 months, and then afterward there has come this I would say conflict, or the Iran-Iraqi war that we know lasted 8 years, and all this time, all during these 8 years, the support for Palestinian did not decrease even one bit. So during this hardship, the support to the Palestinian from Imam Khomeini and from the Iranian people is something we should learn forever. So the International Al-Quds Day is the day of unity, is a day in which the destinies of the oppressed nations must be determined. The International Al-Quds Day is a universal day. It is a day for the oppressed to rise and stand up against the arrogant. The International Al-Quds Day is the day of Islamic survival. We can search so many sayings of Imam Khomeini regarding Palestinians, regarding Al-Quds, an endless support from him, from which we should always learn and take an example. So once again, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I would like now to pass the session to Mr. Karimi. He is the organizer of our webinar, and he is supposed to give the opening remark, but I'm sorry, Mr. Karimi, I put you as a closing remark. So yeah, and I would like, before your closing remarks, to for all of us to listen to Brother Dr. Mansur Limba from the Philippines, which is unable to attend our webinar today, but he has already sent us his footage. So once again, on behalf of me, myself, and the organization I represent, on behalf of Indonesian brothers and sisters, I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Nguyen Quang Khai, Samahal Alama Al-Ustad Muhammad Azmi, Samahal Alama Lafir Madani. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may God protect you all. And in saying of Arabic, Allah yukathir amthalakum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah strengthen our struggle for justice, for human justice, especially for our Palestinian brothers. Thank you, Dr. Karimi. Now the session is yours for Dr. Mansur Limba and your closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So without delay, we go for the
Thank
speech
you.
of Dr. Limba.
Yeah, thank you. Terima kasih.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Do you have it, brother? You have? Is it okay?
A bit.
Or good evening to all of you.
Right?
Good evening.
At the outset, I would like to thank the Islamic Republic of Iran's embassy in Kuala Lumpur for organizing this webinar and for inviting me to share some thoughts and reflections on the subject at hand. Given the time constraint in this presentation, after an introductory remarks on the subject, I will first walk you through the very translation of the text of the declaration of the last Friday of Ramadan as International Quds Day. We will then identify and discuss 5 key points of the said declaration. And in the end, I will make my summary and conclusion.
Everything clear, yeah?
Yes.
In order to mobilize support from Muslims and other oppressed nations in defending the Palestinian rights to self-determination, Imam Khomeini believed that instead of turning to grounds, topics, and issues having no roots in the culture of the Palestinian nation, one should take advantage of the ideology of Islam and its potentials. Declaring the last Friday of the fasting month of Ramadan as International Quds Day is consistent with this attitude. The month of Ramadan provides the Muslims with an ideal opportunity. Spiritually inspired by a month of fasting and attendance to religiously instructive ceremonies, the Islamic believers gain readiness to turn their attention to the great responsibility borne by the Ummah to liberate the first Qibla of the Muslims. To fully grasp the importance of the declaration of the last Friday of Ramadan as Quds Day, it is necessary to quote at some length the first message of Quds Day founder, which lays down the cornerstone of his conception of and philosophy behind the declaration, and the subsequent messages are based on these declarations. Thereafter, we will analyze the implications of the key points of the statements toward the Palestinian question. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. For many years, I have been warning Muslims of the menace posed by the usurper Israel, which has recently intensified her savage raids on our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Bent on the destruction of Palestinian freedom fighters, Israel has been ceaselessly bombing their houses and homes in southern Lebanon. I call on the Muslims of the world, as well as on all Muslim governments, to join forces to cut down this usurper and its supporters. I invite Muslims all over the globe to consecrate the last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan, which is a day of faith, and which could also become the day on which the fate of the Palestinian people might be determined as Quds Day, and to proclaim the international solidarity of Muslims in support of the legitimate rights of the Muslim people of Palestine. I pray to the Almighty for the victory of the Muslims over the infidels. May peace and mercy of God be upon you. Ruhullah al-Musawi al-Khomeini.
Ramadan 1399 after Hijrah. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Quds Day is a global day. It is not a day exclusively for Quds. It is a day when the oppressed confront the oppressors. It is a day of confrontations for nations that have been under the tyranny of the American government and other oppressors. It is a day when the oppressed should become equipped against the oppressors, and they should rub their noses in the dirt. It is a day when committed individuals are preferred over hypocrites. Dedicated people consider today as Quds Day and act as they are obliged. The hypocrites and those who are secretly acquainted with the superpowers and are friendly with Israel today are indifferent and do not allow the nations to demonstrate on this day. Quds Day is a day when the fate of the oppressed nations must be determined. Oppressed nations should make their presence known to the oppressors, just like Iran rose up and defeated and will defeat. All nations should rise up and throw these germs of corruption in the garbage. Quds Day is a day when these followers of Iran's past regime and corrupt making regimes and superpowers in other places, especially in Lebanon, should know their assignment. It is a day when we and they should exert our efforts to liberate Quds and save our Lebanese brothers. It is a day when we have to rescue the oppressed from the claws of the oppressors. It is a day when the Islamic society should make its presence known to all superpowers and their power, whether in Iran or other places. It is a day when these intellectuals who have formed a relation with America or American agents should be warned that if they don't quit this interfering, they will be suppressed. Quds Day is a day when superpowers should be warned that they must leave the oppressed alone and sit back and take their own place. Israel has become the enemy of humanity, who daily starts a new uproar, setting our brothers in southern Lebanon on fire. Israel should try to understand that its masters don't have any power any longer. They should choose isolation. They should cut their covetousness of Iran and take their hands off all Muslim countries. Quds Day is the day of announcing such an issue. It is the declaration that the satanic superpowers want to isolate the Islamic nations and impose themselves on the scene of action. Quds Day is a day when their wishes should be checked, and they should be warned that those times are gone. The day of Quds is the day of Islam. All Muslims must be warned and must understand how strong their spiritual and economic powers are. Muslims are 1 billion people, supported by God, Islam, and the power of faith. Why should they be afraid? The day of Quds is such a day and announces such a goal, announcing the progress of the Muslims all over the world. The day of Quds is not only the day of Palestine, it is a day of Islam as well. It is the day of Islamic government. It is the day when the banner of Islam is to be flown in all countries, and the Muslims must show the superpowers that they cannot influence Islamic countries any longer. They must realize that the day of Quds is Islam's and the Prophet's day, the day that we must master all our powers, and all of the Muslims must come out of isolation and stand against the foreigners with all their strength. The day of Quds is the day that we will realize which regime and persons are cooperating with international conspirators and thus are opposing Islam. Those who do not participate in these demonstrations are opposing Islam and thus are in agreement with Israel. Those who participate in the demonstrations on this day are responsible people and are in stride with Islam and thus oppose Israel. The day of Quds is a day to distinguish between truth and falsehood. I ask God Almighty to give victory to Islam over all of the other faiths and support the deprived in order to defeat the arrogant, those who oppose deprivation. I implore God to free our Muslim brothers in Palestine and South Lebanon and everywhere in the world from the oppressors, deprivers, and plunderers. Peace and blessings be upon the messenger of God and the imams of the Muslims. After walking you through the very translation text of the declaration, let us now analyze selected key points of the said manifesto. First of all, by stressing that for many years I have been warning Muslims of the menace posed by the usurper Israel, which has recently intensified her savage rage on our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Imam Khomeini's concern about the issue is not a new one. Is a new one born out of the establishment of the Islamic Republic. It is not meant to be an empty rhetoric aimed at winning the heart of the Arabs, or at least the Palestinians, towards the Islamic political establishment in Tehran. Instead, it has been a priority agendum for him as a concerned Muslim worth the name long years before the Islamic Revolution. Secondly, though all Muslim governments are mentioned, undoubtedly, Imam Khomeini's invitation to consecrate the last Friday of the fasting month is mainly addressed to the Muslim masses of the world, as suggested by the remarkable repetitions. I have been warning Muslims, I call on the Muslims of the world, and I invite all Muslims all over the globe. It shows that he is pinning hope on the masses and not their governments, as they have the power to mobilize once organized. Another reason behind his reliance on the people is indicated by his own remarks. He said, "It's a day when committed individuals are preferred over hypocrites. Dedicated people consider today as Quds Day and act as they are obliged. The hypocrites and those who are secretly acquainted with the superpowers and are friendly with Israel today are indifferent or do not allow the nations to demonstrate on this day." Quality as represented by committed individuals are favored over quantity, as represented particularly by the phrase, the hypocrites, alluding to those in the high echelon of the governments in the Muslim world, who, according to the Imam, are indifferent and do not allow the nations to demonstrate today. Third point. In this message, the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution points to the true nature and scope of the Quds Day as the day of all the oppressed and deprived people in confrontation with the world devourers and oppressors. Quds Day is a global day. It is not a day exclusively for Quds. It is a day when the oppressed confront the oppressors. If it is named Quds Day, it is only because the Palestinian question is a paradigmatic example of an oppressed nation under the yoke of a regional power fully backed by superpowers. Besides, in this clash between the oppressed and the oppressors, the modus operandi proposed by Ayatollah Khomeini is for the oppressed unified front to exhibit their existence and resistance against the arrogant powers and their surrogate agents in a bid to demonstrate their power of unity, will, and dedication. He said, "It is a day when the Islamic society should make its presence known to all superpowers and their power." Fourth point, by declaring that the Day of Quds is not only the Day of Palestine, but it is the Day of Islam, the Imam made it clear the true essence and orientation of the Palestinian issue. If, for the past 4 decades then, the issue had been reckoned as confined within the bounds of Arabism, particularly during the apex of Nasserism in the Arab world, in this communique, it is asserted that the matter is an Islamic one and therefore it concerns all the Muslims of the world. Lastly, taking into account the Islamic nature of the issue, which is supposed to have a place in the heart of every true believer, Imam Khomeini views the International Quds Day as a distinguisher, or faruq, and criterion, or furqan, when he rightly argues, and I quote, "The Day of Quds is the day that we will realize which regime and persons are cooperating with international conspirators and thus are opposing Islam. Those who do not participate in these demonstrations are opposing Islam and thus are in agreement with Islam. Those who participate and have demonstrations on this day are responsible people who are in stride with Islam and thus oppose Israel." So, having stated these 5 key points, let us mention them in summary. First, championing the legitimate cause of the Palestinians had been part of Imam Khomeini's agenda long time before the formation of the Islamic political establishment in Iran. Number 2, International Quds Day is the day when the Muslim masses are called for to go out and demonstrate their sense of solidarity and support to the Palestinian people. Number 3, it is the day marking the conflict between the oppressed of the world and their oppressors. Number 4, the Palestinian problem is an Islamic issue and is thus not only the business of the Arabs. Number 5, commemoration of the Quds Day through participation in the demonstrations delineates those clinging to Islam from those subservient to Israel. So, in conclusion, let us all fervently pray that this will be the last Quds Day program all over the world, with the liberation of the Holy Land and the true opening of its door to all religions and faith traditions without any discrimination. On a lighter note, to those who are interested to get a free copy of my book, The Power of International Quds Day in the Cyberspace, may get it by following the link www.lzstyle.com/qudsday. I thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Imam Khomeini and the word fronts of the oppressed. I hope that a party named the Party of the Oppressed will emerge all over the world, and that all the oppressed will join this party unitedly and eradicate the problems faced.
Brother, do you have the clip?
Yes,
Okay.
loud and clear.
Imam Khomeini and the word fronts of the oppressed. I hope that a party named the Party of the Oppressed will emerge all over the world, and that all the oppressed will join this party unitedly and eradicate the problems facing the oppressed and rise against the arrogant powers and predators of the East and the West. And no longer let them oppress the oppressed of the world, and to perform the call of Islam and the promise of Islam, which is the rule of oppressed over the arrogant powers, and it is the legacy of the land for the oppressed.
Well, thank you very much, brothers. I would like to thank and appreciate all of our prominent guests and prominent speakers. Really, we have benefited from your speech. We have 15 minutes more to the end of our webinar today, and I don't want to have a prolonged speech, and I prefer also to have the final words of each and every one of our speakers. That is why I will summarize my speech, and I will inshallah, again, we will benefit from our prominent speakers, and we will have your final words, inshallah. What I want to refer, let me refer to a verse of the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in chapter Shura, in verse 41 and 42, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَمَنِ انْتَصَرَ بَعْدَ ظُلْمِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَا عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ إِنَّمَا السَّبِيلُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَظْلِمُونَ النَّاسَ وَيَبْغُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ صدق الله العلي العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these two words, Allah says that, and whosoever asks for help, asks for resistance, after he has been harmed, there is no blame upon them. The blame is only against those who wrong people. The blame is only against those who oppress people and are wrongfully insolent in the earth. For them, there is a painful punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these two verses has given enough reason for resistance against the oppressors. As you know, the illegitimate Israel regime declaring the existence in 1948 began the occupation of Palestine by the displacement and expulsion of the Palestinian people from their land. During all these years, the Palestinian people have suffered historic pain and oppression, and those who were trapped in the occupied territories have been threatened, discriminated against, and humiliated for years. Or they are under siege or widespread pressure and deprivation in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Indeed, the Israeli regime, they were following, or let's put it in this way, that they had four main strategic goals. The Israeli regime, they were following four main strategic goals out of all these occupations. One, and during all these years, one is weakening the axis of resistance. The second, continuing the process of normalization of Israeli-Arab relations. Of course, during all these years, along with the Western countries and the Israeli regime, some reactionary Arab regimes of the region, with the aim of carrying out the sinister plan for the deal of the century, and also in the framework of the ominous triangle of Western Arab and Hebrews, they have launched a severe psychological and media operations. So that was all for helping the process of normalization of Israel with Arabs and some Muslim countries. So the third main goal that the Israeli regime were following, that was gaining legitimacy while being an occupier. And the fourth one, dominating Al-Quds as the first Qibla for Muslim, and to destroy the Islamic identity of the city and the land of Palestine. So, because I don't want to prolong my speech, Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh, by naming the last Friday of Ramadan and Yawm al-Quds, and by enlightening all Muslims of the world, and not only Muslims, but all free men of the world, by uniting all of them and by enlightening them against this usurper regime and against this occupation. Imam Khomeini, with all these united powers, I mean by powers, all these united Muslims and non-Muslims against this occupier. Indeed, they have defeated all the plans of Israel. And today we can see more enlightenment, especially during these recent events. You could see everywhere in the world, as Maulana also referred and other speakers also talked about. We have seen the enlightenment of all the world against this occupation. We hope, inshallah, soon we can see and we can witness the liberation of Al-Quds, inshallah. And we pray, inshallah, in the Masjid al-Aqsa. There are concepts and terms that we hear a lot. That is the concept of unity, whether unity of Muslims or, as mentioned by our speakers, unity of humanity, and defending the oppressors, defending the oppressed people, and resistance against the oppressors and tyrants. So these are the terms that we hear, and Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh, not only after Islamic Revolution, even before Islamic Revolution, was talking about this and was enlightening all humanity about these terms: unity, defending the oppressed, and resistance. And let me add one more: justice. These were the terms and the concepts that we could hear a lot in the speech of Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi. And when it comes to Palestine, we can see all these here. As far as the Palestine is concerned, we can see all these concepts gathered here. I hope I can deliver what I want, what is in my mind. You know, from one side, the Palestine became like a scale. It's a criteria, as you said. It's a scale that for one side is unity, one side is justice, one side is resistance, one side is the oppressed people, and on the other side, on the opposite side, we can see this unity, we can see inequity, we can see arrogance, and we can see all kinds of crimes. So Palestine here is a scale for all Muslims and even for non-Muslims, you know, to decide which side they want to be with the side of justice, with the side of resistance and defending the oppressed, or to be on the other side. And this is Palestine. Palestine, where we stand. And as mentioned, is a legacy of spiritual leader Ayatollah Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi. If it was not his enlightening, we could not see such, you know, voices that we can hear today in the world. Well, I would like to thank all our speakers. Really, I appreciate you put time, and I'm really thankful for your patience also. Okay, Brother Miftah, I leave the session again with you.
Okay.
I think it's good if we can have final words of our speakers. We have few minutes time also. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Afwan, thank you very much, Dr. Karimi, for putting up this webinar once again as not only a remembrance of the late Imam Khomeini rahimahullah, but also as our support to the Palestinian cause. For the next few minutes, we have 5 to 6 minutes, few closing remarks. Let's begin with Your Excellency Dr. Nguyen Quang Khai. Your Excellency, please.
Okay. Again, we would like to voice our support to the struggle of Palestinian people and for restoring the national rights of Palestinian people, including the right of self-determination and right of return and the right to establish an independent state in Palestine. And our position is very similar to Iranian Islamic Republic position, and Indonesia and Malaysia and Sri Lanka, and Philippines and Muslim countries. We, all of us, have to unite our voices to support Palestinian people. And we hope one day we can see each other in Palestine and in Jerusalem. We hope that the Palestinian people struggle will will win. And this struggle will not win without our support. And I think that this webinar is a good opportunity to voice our support to the Palestinian people. And finally, I would like to thank you, to thank the Iranian embassy in Malaysia for its initiative to organize this webinar. And I wish all of you good health and prosperity. And thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, Samah al-Alam al-Ustad Muhammad Azmi, your closing remarks, if you may, please. Thank you. The audio, please, Ustad.
Thank you very much. This is a very challenging time. This is a very trying time. Aside from we are discussing about Palestine, we are facing a global crisis of every angle, you know, from environment to health crisis to economic crisis. And we do know as people who understands what peace is about, what harmony is about, what justice is about, we know the root cause of this. And it is all converging to this protracted issue of Palestine. And I think aside from enlightenment, there is the need to understand how mobilizing of people can be actually, evolved. I'm trying to lead an organization called the Alliance of World Masjid in Defense of Al-Aqsa. We have 4.5 million masjid all over the world. And to be frank, we are very disconnected. The minbar, 4.5 minbar around the world is not, converging to one voice. So I think what we can do now after this, we can still have another round of discussion, how to mobilize the minbar of the Muslims around the world to become the points of delivering this issue so that people will have this understanding. So I wish we can have another discussion on this. And also this does not stop as we are inviting some His Excellency from Vietnam that, this is not just about Muslim, this is about the humanity, the humanness, We talk about humankind. There's no more kindness. It's supposed to be humankind. But, we are wrongly translating it into a human evil. So arrogance and tyranny. So let us also cross the border of religion, and we should have another round of discussion on the inter-religious discussion on Palestine. That every religion should come forward to be with us, to be with the Palestinian, to go on talking about it, pressuring about it, that the human being has to really stand up against tyranny of the usurpers of Israel, also the supporters of Israel from the superpowers and other nations. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Mr. Karimi. It has been wonderful to be with this forum. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ustad. Excellent idea indeed. I believe that will be the next agenda for Mr. Karimi.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Now we go to Maulana Lafir Madani for your closing remarks. Falyatafaddal.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, once again. And it was indeed a pleasure and honor to be with you all from different part of, especially the Southeast Asia region, which we like very much. And my last visit to Kuala Lumpur was just before the start of the pandemic, Corona attack, and I met the predecessor of Dr. Karimi, Mr. Sabiki, who happened to be our good friend like Mr. Karimi. He also had served in Sri Lanka for a term, and so I had the opportunity of meeting him in KL. And before that, I used to travel very, very often to Kuala Lumpur. And today it was a pleasure to have the ambassador from Vietnam and my good friend from Indonesia, and the learned scholar from Malaysia. And I think this solidarity should remain strong, as the ambassador and Maulana mentioned, that we should bring our forces together, voices together, to support the oppressed men, not only in Palestine, everywhere, not only Muslims, everyone. Wherever there is oppression, wherever there is injustice, the forces of justice and voice of justice should be heard and should be risen at the proper channels and proper media. And finally, I thank you once again, Mr. Karimi, for this wonderful job, and I wish him success in the future as well. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Jazakumullah khairan. I would like, Dr. Ahmed, sorry, I would like to thank also our cultural counselors in Philippines, in Indonesia, in Sri Lanka, for supporting us, and also our ambassador in Vietnam. So we have the honor of having our cultural counselor, Dr. Saburi, with us, who joined us just a few minutes ago. Dr. Saburi, please, we are at the end of our webinar. It is 5 minutes, even more. So let us hear from you, and then inshallah, we will end the session.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I apologize for my delaying because I had another program about late Imam Khomeini in other place in Manila. So I came very late, sorry. But thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm sure that you had a very good lectures about the late Imam Khomeini and his viewpoints about Palestine. I congratulate my dear brother, Mr. Karimi, for organizing of this valuable webinar. And I hope that as my friend, Mr. Muhammad, as me told, we can continue this these webinars about Palestine and other issues of the Islamic world, to see how we can unite the people, Muslim people, and have a good discussion and cultural and interreligious dialogue with the other people, like Christianity, to see how we can cooperate with each other for solving these problems of the human, not only Muslims. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Inshallah, Maulana, Dr. Ahmed, sorry that I just come in. Maulana Azmi, will you make the final dua?
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Allahumma nas'aluka ridhaka wal jannah, na'udzu bika min sakhatika wan nar. Allahumma innaka afuwwun karim tuhibbu afwa fa'fu anna. Allahumma inna nas'aluka lisanan ratiban bi zikrik wa qalban maf'uman bi syukrik wa badanan hayyan layyinan bi ta'atik. Allahumma nas'aluka imanan kamila wa nas'aluka qalban khashi'an wa nas'aluka yaqinan sadiqan ونسألك دينا قيما ونسألك العافية من كل بلية ونسألك تمام الغنى عن الناس وهب لنا حقيقة الإيمان بك حتى لا نخاف ولا نرجوك ولا نخاف شيء سواك وجعل لك مبسوطة علينا وعلى أهلنا وأولادنا وما معنا برحمتك ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين ولا كن من ذلك المجيب ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله محمد الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون السلام عليكم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much all. It's been an honor indeed, a privilege to be with all of you. And I would like to conclude with one of Imam Khomeini saying also about the Palestinians. We are on the side of the oppressed, whichever pole they may be in. Palestinians are the oppressed. Therefore, we side with them. Therefore, we stand with them. Palestine, where we stand. Thank you very much once again. Wa'alafu minkum wa ma taufiqi illa billah alaihi tawakkaltu wa ilaihi unib. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much,
Washukran.
everybody.
Thank you everybody. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank